Amazing, and welcome back to the Elemental Podcast, the space for truly living an extraordinary life. As the podcast returns, I feel so blessed to be sharing this episode with an incredible guest, Ambassador Eric, who will be guiding us through the ancient system of Kabbalah, specifically the universal Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life journey. This is a 10 to 12-month journey of it's a path of spiritual development, growth, and expansion, a journey that reveals the goodness and divine wisdom held within the sacred glyph of the tree of life itself. We are so fortunate because not only has Kabbalah been offered to us once in the recent years here in the UK, it's actually come around again. So that's a true gift. In December this year, the Modern Mystery School, United Kingdom, and UK Europe will be hosting Ambassador Eric, who will be starting the ascension journey of Kabbalah. For anyone who hasn't experienced Kabbalah, I highly recommend you give this episode a listen. Tune into what resonates, and if you feel the call, reach out to your guide or send me a message if you haven't got a guide or haven't been initiated yet, so that I can send you directly to the Modern Mystery School itself, so that if you're ready to join this amazing, powerful journey of Kabbalah in December. So now it felt so apt to invite Ambassador Eric on today's episode, because the podcast is all about stepping in beyond the ordinary. So extraordinarily living free and really following what your purpose and a passion is. And Ambassador Eric truly embodies that. He's not only the Kabbalah teacher for this upcoming ascension, but also life activation practitioner, part of the male leadership within the Modern Mystery School, and the leader of the Building Wealth class, as well as Releasing Your Negative Emotions class, self-leadership in the new paradigm. He holds a big key for the masculine healing, because in this world, we've got so many fun and friendly, feminine-looking, wonderful healers, and he really embodies both the divine masculine and feminine so beautifully with all of these sacred classes that he has, but also I feel has helped me be able to see through the illusions that spiritual men have to be hippies with dreadlocks, which has been amazing. He's also a ritual master, an international healer, and the co-founder of the Modern Mystery School in Brazil, which he began with Absissima Lisa many, many years ago. So today I've invited Ambassador Eric to help us understand not only what Kabbalah is, but how the sacred system can truly transform your life, whether you've been walking the spiritual path for many years now, or just at the beginning to explore what calls you. We're genuinely blessed to have him here. So, Ambassador Eric, thank you so much for joining us. And to begin, could you please just share about your personal journey? What did life look like before you became a Kabbalah teacher, even a life activation practitioner, and what led you to this work?
Oh, good. Starting off good and strong, huh?
Mhm.
Thank you, Jessica, for having me, and thank you everyone for being here to watch and hopefully understand a little bit more about Kabbalah, about yourself. Well, my journey started about in 2007. 2008 is actually when, up until 2008, for the first 44 years of my life, I had achieved a good level of success, what people would consider success. I worked in Hollywood. I was an engineer. I was an engineer for movies. I worked on movies like Iron Man and Forrest Gump and 300, and worked with Penelope Cruz and Al Pacino and John Travolta. Just a lot. I got an opportunity to work with a lot of people. I made a lot of money. I had the big house. I had the big cars. I had what people normally, I mean, I was taught to go looking for that. And once you get that, then you've achieved success, right? And yet, with all of these things, I was still not doing so great. I mean, some days I was amazing, and other days I was down, depressed, and sad, and always a reaction of everything that was happening. So, things were going good, I was good. If things weren't going well, I was really bad. I was very controlling. I was very jealous. I was actually pretty bad. But I got tired of living that way, and I had everyone in my life got tired of me continuing being that way and got sick and tired of it. I got to the point where I decided, finally, instead of pointing it outside of me and blaming the government and blaming, other people and blaming, wife or girlfriend or somebody for how I was feeling and making them responsible for making me happy, I decided I needed to do something because it wasn't changing. I was like, wait a minute, I actually have to do something. Fate and circumstance kind of forced me to stay in a situation a little bit longer than I had hoped to. But what I considered to be a bad thing at the time turned out to be a good thing, because during this 2.5 years that I was kind of made to stay and deal with something, I found the mystery school. And that I did the life activation, I did the first initiation, I did the second initiation. I did pretty much everything. As I started to see that things were changing, I started feeling better and people were starting to actually like me, and I was starting to like myself. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm actually starting to let some of these things go that were dominating me. I mean, I never did a workshop on how to be not jealous or how to be less controlling and beat out your emotions and do all that. I didn't do any of that. What I did is I started connecting with the light, and the light, for an engineer, it didn't make much sense to me at the time, because I don't know if you're an engineer watching this, you're like, what are you talking about? But the light basically would shine on what I was doing and show me where it is that I was in alignment or not in alignment with things. And then I started to change by looking at them and doing new practices and new applications and new teachings and initiations and all that. And eventually was able to, I didn't become Buddha overnight, but I did get to the point where I would just want to do a little bit more, and then I'd have a little bit of doubt. I take a step back and then I step two forward, and then a little bit of doubt. And, I think a lot of people feel this every day. They're kind of battling with something in their mind of, yeah, this is going to be great. And then some part of you says, no, it's not. And you're like, no, I really want to do this. No, maybe you're not going to be able to do this. And kind of goes back and forth. And this battle going on sometimes tens of times in one day. So I got tired of living this way. I was like, everything should be great. I have all the things that I would want, but I didn't know who I was. So I started a path, because most of us, we say, I know who I am, but normally we'll just say, I'm Eric, or I'm a sound mixer, or I'm a Kabbalah teacher, but that's not who you are. That's what you do, or that might be your name or some other identifying factor of that. But who are you really? And we never get asked this when we're children, like, who are you? We never know this. Like, what's your purpose? We always get asked, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be? But not like, what are you? Who are you? So I started this path and it changed everything for me, because I started to actually realize that I'm responsible for things. And if I'm giving it outside my responsibility on the government, then they have to change for me to be good. And I don't want anyone else to have all that control. I want to have this control, but I just didn't know how to do that. So I started this path in the modern mystery schools, like an amazing way to do this, because it actually has a path and a lineage, which we can talk about a little bit in this interview, of how you can actually walk a path to knowing who you really are. And once you know yourself, then you can actually start to enjoy life, and actually start to live instead of trying to be something that you're not. And that's one of the things that Kabbalah does for us, is it helps us to really know who you are and then eliminate all the pieces that you're not, so that you can reveal who you are. It's actually quite an amazing, amazing journey. And that started back in 2008 for me. So I've been doing this for some
Wow.
time. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. 2008. You're nearly on the 20-year mark with Kabbalah.
Yeah, it's been a while now. I've been
Wow.
doing it for a while. And of course, I got these tools and then I started applying them, and then it started changing me and then those around me. Cause we first started a path wanting self-healing, right? We want to start to learn how we can be better. And then later we can help others, because it's so amazing. I want to help other people remember how they can let go of all these things, let go of the fear and the doubt and the worry and the frustration and all those things, the jealousy and that plague us so much. But if you don't have the tools how to do this, we were never taught this in school, right? We learned things that don't really matter too much, like dates of history and things like this. So now we get to really understand more about life and who we are. And so then this led me to Brazil, where I opened up Brazil with Ipsis and brought these teachings to Brazil. And there was nobody in Brazil, like zero. So, we went in 1 life activation, 2 life activations, 3, eventually had enough people, brought down a teacher, did adept initiations, and then eventually had enough people to start doing Kabbalah because we really wanted Kabbalah. So finally we got Kabbalah. And then our eyes were like, oh my God, this is obvious. It already was an amazing path, but like now I was starting to, I really identified with Kabbalah because you can actually go in and fix all the cracks in your foundation so you can build upon it. And once I had that, I knew I wanted to be a Kabbalah teacher. So I started that path. It didn't reveal itself to me at that time, but I awoke in that inkling of that desire to do it. It was quite amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. And really, that's the truth of dedication, and it, even prior to coming to the lineage and to the path, like, firstly, thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey, is that, you've definitely shown dedication throughout, prior
Hmm.
to and before. And it was like, you built this really successful career. And I've heard this time and time again with people who are incredibly successful, who do very, very well, but they reach a certain level of, this is not it. There must be something else. And it's great, because especially for so many young men out there, I find a lot of men and women, but predominantly men, as being these, provider driven men, is like they're seeking the money, the financial stability, and that's so incredible. But as you've brought in, there's that alignment of having a spiritual path with it that helps with the empowerment of self, being able to bring that forward. Brings true transformation and change. And, your journey from that into bringing the life activation and the Kabbalah into Brazil and expanding on that is incredible. And it makes sense why, you're teaching classes such as building wealth and self-leadership in the new paradigm and releasing negative emotions, because you truly come through that level of mastery to be able to bring that to us. So thank you so much. Now, you've touched on a little bit about Kabbalah, and you also mentioned about using Kabbalah and these to kind of iron out the little creases in life, and really go deep into that. Now, for anyone listening who might be hearing the word Kabbalah for the first time, could you share what is Kabbalah, and what is it all about?
Good question. Actually, it's a very deep question. Kabbalah itself, the word Kabbalah means to receive or to reveal. And well, what does that mean to receive? Well, it means to receive answers, right? And where do you receive answers? Well, to questions. And where does it come from? Well, ideally, the answers come from within. And that's what Kabbalah is. It's about asking questions, good questions, like who am I? Where am I going? What is my purpose? Versus why does this keep happening to me? That's not going to lead you to a good answers if you keep asking those types of questions. So it allows you to access through like a spiritual doorway, you can say, information that is integral and very important for you, that comes from God or come from divinity, right? So you're actually able to connect to this through Kabbalah or through what we would call direct experience, right? So because in Kabbalah, we actually, in the mystery school, we don't learn about Kabbalah. That's what we learned in school. You learn about this war, you learn about science, but we're actually going to learn Kabbalah. What does that mean? That means you're going to actually experience it. So you're actually going to live it. And then this allows you to really understand it when you live it. It's one thing to read about climbing a mountain or read about scuba diving, but until you've actually done it, all the reading that you want to do isn't going to bring that experience or even the wisdom from applying it into your lives. I would say Kabbalah is kind of like a spiritual GPS, if you want to keep it in simple terms. Um, it allows you to access your higher self, your God self through Kabbalah, which is where you came from, right? And then it gives you it'll give us the map. We're going to study the tree of life, which is going to be the map of how to get from where you are in this physical world until your true self, or what we would call your higher self, right? So you can start understanding what are these patterns that you've been repeating that you're just ready to let go of? Like for me with the jealousy or the controlling. The more you can let go of these patterns that you keep repeating, you don't really know why you're doing them. So it's important for us to understand why. Now, your teacher won't tell you exactly what those are. That's actually your answer. That's going to be your experience. But Kabbalah will give you the energy and the knowledge and power for you to be able to find it, and then gives you the energy to change it through the ascensions, which I can explain in the.
Wow. Yeah, it's, as a Kabbalist myself, I got the opportunity to truly dive into that. And when I realized when we went through the ascension, I've only just started and it's just the beginning. And, as you beautifully explain now, it really helps to release the things that we don't even know why we're still holding on to, that are, the resistance and what's blocking us from receiving and opening up those deeper parts of self. I think for those who are listening, Kabbalah is also something that can be used to manifest. It can be used to heal. There's so many dimensions to it. And Kabbalah itself is truly, it's a magnificent gift to be able to step onto that path. If you do have the opportunity to do it, whether you're in the UK or if you're in America or Europe, there are classes that are available to you. The ascensions are available to you. And if not to start immediately, we have them coming in and out in a certain flow. About that though, what is the integration? Like, are they daily practices? What does a day in the life of a Kabbalist look like,
Okay.
Ambassador?
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, I'd say if you're watching this and you've ever thought that maybe there's something more to life than what you're actually doing at the time, right now, you look up at the stars and you're like, oh my God, there's actually more here than what I'm experiencing. I don't think anyone thinks we came here to pay bills and to work in jobs that we don't like or to be in relationships that we. So if you think there may be something more, then I would say Kabbalah would be a good thing for someone to do. In Kabbalah, we actually start to live Kabbalah. There is a process. If you've ever done an initiation or an activation, there is a process, an energetic process that we do in Kabbalah that allows us to actually live Kabbalah. So you get to actually go home and without even opening a book, however, we do recommend that you do read about Kabbalah as well, so you can have some different perspectives. You will experience those aspects, right? Kabbalah is divided up into 10 sephira or 10 aspects of yourself. So what does this mean? So let's suppose, I'll give you a quick example. If you have like Gebra, which is severity, right? And that's kind of like you could say like the firm parent, okay? It's being strong, you're kind of firm, you give boundaries and that. And then on the other pole would be the merciful parent or the compassionate, right? So that would be like, it's okay, come here, I understand. But it's not about you being one only or the other only. It's about you being able to apply what's necessary according to whatever is appropriate at the time. But you know what? Some people, they're just not really good at imposing boundaries or saying no. And some people are really good at saying no and imposing boundaries, and they can't really be very compassionate. So when you have your ascension, you rise up into that energy and you're actually able to experience the opposite pole or the opposite side of what you would normally be or experience. This allows you to be like, we would say, almighty, right? It would be like, why is God almighty? Well, because God can do all things, right? God is not just good or strong in one thing. So if you're able to choose from both and then be on the middle pillar and apply one or the other, that makes you strong. Versus if I don't even have the capacity to apply the other side, I really can't be as effective in the world. This is like what I consider to be like the main bonus that we get with this Kabbalah is that you get to go and actually live it. So how do you learn best? Well, through direct experience, right? So we can actually live it, and then through living it, then you can discern and decide what you want to do. If you've never experienced it, it's really hard for you to do that.
That you took us quite deep there. Thank you,
I
Ambassador.
know. I was thinking that's pretty deep right up in the first 5 minutes, right?
Well, I'm so grateful because I always need a gentle reminder when it comes to the Gebra and the Hesed, because I myself, my Sephira is Geburah all the time. And
Oh, okay.
learning about the ebb and flow and the balance and that it's so special, especially in, we always as a human race are so hard on ourselves, and really to bring in that compassion, but then also to have, direction and the balance and the ebb and flow is such an integral part of what Kabbalah brings us, because it's about coming and bringing us into the middle pillar and allowing us to create that balance for ourselves. And
Yeah.
I think for those hearing about the tree for the first time, how does the tree of life, you were just talking about the Sephiras now. Now,
Yeah.
this is so someone who's never heard this before, they've heard Sephiras, tree of life, glyph, and a map. Give us the dummy crash course quickly. What is the
Okay.
glyph?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do want to say that, yeah, we did go deep there for a second, but one thing that I feel like I'm good at is to make things palpable and understandable so that you can understand them and actually live them. So if we went a little deep for you right now, don't worry, it'll all be explained very slowly and very methodically so that you can actually take it home and live it. Okay, so the tree of life, I would say. So Kabbalah, let's simplify it. Kabbalah, we could say, is like the study of life. Okay, the study of your life and everything. And then the tree of life would be the map. So the tree of life, that glyph with all the 10 sephiras, all the little balls on it, if you've never seen it before, would be the map of how you can get from where you are to where you want to get to. Most of us kind of do all this back turning and never really get to where we want. Well, it will help you get from point A to point B, from your lower self to your higher self, from where you are in love to where you want to get in love. Whatever it may be, it's a map, it's a formula for you to be able to get there. So, and the Sephiras are actually these spheres, and what they would be is aspects of you. So we have many aspects of us, and it's actually a way to help organize. A way to help organize is what I'd say.
That's super cool. I like it. We really just went on a roller coaster there, and I'm so
Yeah,
glad.
we
I'm so glad. It's the best thing because that's the beauty about learning with Ambassador Eric, about learning, experiencing Kabbalah, and about being in the lineage is like we go in and out. We come in and out of journeys, and it's so special because we get deep, and then you offer an incredible explanation and help us strengthen discernment and things like that. And when I say us, I mean as a student, I can only really speak on my own behalf. But it was
Mhm.
just a kind of a really beautiful taster and what it is to be in the energy. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really have to say that your class, Building Wealth, is and has been so transformative in my life. And I just have to say to the listeners, like, it is a class that is available for people who not even higher initiates. I think adepts, and correct me if I'm wrong, do you need to be an adept to come to Building Wealth class, Ambassador?
No, no,
No.
it's
So it's
open to the
even
public.
it's open to the public. Now, for those who are listening, the Modern Mystery School is a spiritual school, but it offers so many different avenues. As you were talking about the path of progression, there's many paths. You were talking about Kabbalah. Building Wealth is a class that is available and accessible to really help you expand. Would you please expand on that? Like, is there such what is it like building wealth outside of the matrix? You've discussed about your success within, films and being an engineer, and, you have great success within the spiritual world. And what is wealth and what is building wealth?
Okay, good question. Well, first of all, the money, right, is not necessarily what we're talking about with wealth, although we do talk about money. And sometimes people, they shun money because they say, oh, that's not spiritual, but that's the currency that we use in this physical world, and it's very necessary and very important, and most of us really haven't really made friends with money. We have a lot of misconceptions that money is the root of all evil, or money doesn't grow on trees and all this, and it leads us to a scarcity mentality. And then, so what this causes you to do is to not think in terms of expanding, but how can I contract to save money? How can I contract to budget? How can I contract? Which is making your world less. Well, we want to expand our worlds. Well, how can I increase my flow? Well, first of all, you need to get into the flow. So how do you get into the flow? Well, if I had a bucket and I wanted to go and the river was the flow, I would normally take my bucket and go down to the river and then I'd fill it up. And then I'd take it where I want and then I'd empty the bucket. Right. But that's what most people do. But our bucket's small. So, okay, so I need a bigger bucket. So I grab a little bit bigger bucket. All right. So you make a little bit more money and then you take the bigger bucket down there and you get it and you go and you take it where you want. But then again, you're really only expressing to the size of what you have, the size of your bucket. Well, how are your thoughts? Are your thoughts working against you? Are they working with you? Are they telling you that you can do it? Or are they saying, you know what, we better not because there's not going to be any more coming? Well, the universe is abundant. And if I think that there's going to be no more coming, and then I'm going to stop the flow. So I need to get into the flow, or I want to get into the river where the flow is. That's what I want to do. So we talk about how to do that so that our expression in the world is not limited, right? But we grew up with all sorts of misconceptions about money. We never even really learned about money. So how could we be good at money? Right? About it. Probably at best, you learned how to balance a checkbook when you were in high school. And even then now, I don't even know if there are checkbooks anymore. I saw a student paying with a check and I was like, oh my God, people use checks, And as an indigo, you probably don't use checks. You use Wise or you use Venmo or some sort of system, right? A check would be like, what are you talking about? But for people like me, yeah, I grew up with checks. So you don't know how to do certain things. So the money will show you what's going on inside. If I want to express, then I need money, right, to be able to do that. So how can I express what's going on inside? I don't want that to be limited because then my thoughts will be limited. And then once that's limited, then I lower my standards. I can't afford to live in the penthouse because my mind tells me I can't, instead of how can I do that? So it's really amazing. This class was designed by Sovereign Ipsissimus Dave Lanyon, and he's really a master of mastering life and mastering the physical world. And there are so many nuggets in this class that it's unbelievable. You will change your life after watching it. You will after participating in it, if you pay attention.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That just echoes how valuable the class is, and the nuggets, as you mentioned. And side question, building wealth class, can you build wealth with Kabbalah?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Because Kabbalah is it's a formula. Okay, so if Kabbalah and the tree of life, okay, let's suppose the tree of life is the divine blueprint, as we say. So it's your DNA. Okay, and your DNA has some, what the word I used was cracks in it, right? So your foundation has some cracks in it. So let's suppose your foundation is money doesn't grow on trees, there's not enough to go around, people that have money have stole it, whatever. These are cracks in your foundation. So why would you want to be somebody who has money
Mm.
if they are, people that stole it? You would want to not do that. So you would sabotage yourself. So Kabbalah will help you look at your patterns and help you look at the way you've been doing things and help you clean that up so that you can start expanding and you can start connecting with that infinite abundance that is in the universe, right? And when you start to do that, then you can actually flow that into your life and then it will appear in the physical world. But if you have leaks, or cracks where all that energy is coming out, then you have great ideas and you sabotage yourself, but they never really manifest in the physical. So Kabbalah can absolutely help you to reorganize the way you think, to eliminate your subconscious programming that you have so that you can start having more abundance, having more love, having more joy, having more, like, what's the virtue that you really would like to have in your life? Do you want to be more compassionate? Well, Kabbalah will help you to become more compassionate. It will help you with everything because it's about you fixing what it is that's broke so that you can ascend to higher ways of thinking and higher realms, we could say, in Kabbalah.
Yeah, that's really good.
We just did Kabbalah in Minnesota right now, and
Yeah.
everybody's like just, yeah, loving it. And we're just getting started.
Well, this is the thing. I love going through social media and people reflecting just the nuggets and the gifts that they've received from Kabbalah, whether it's within the tree or just after the tree or even a year later. And even for myself, yesterday I picked up Gareth Knight, Kabbalistic symbolism, I
Mm.
believe. And, even today I can see how it's reflecting so much in my world and just having those tools and seeing how the gifts really do truly flourish. As part of the leadership in modern mystery, but school, but also in the spiritual world and the realms of male leadership in and spirituality, I would say, what is it that what is it that you bring to the table? For example, in the sense of, I was so misguided to see like all men in spirituality being like dreadlocks and doing more communal things and hippie. You've got a huge background in Portugal, so you understand, there's like 500 retreat centers there. I used to work within these retreat centers. And it's just like there's this vision of like men and spirituality should look and be like this. And then we look at people like yourself and Sovereign, Dave Lanyon, and Sovereign Obsessmus, and where, you've got a strong business background, you're building incredible classes and really developing the spiritual education on the planet. But you present yourselves incredibly with royalty, with like reverence, and you've got, and don't want to say a normal life, but you live outside of a retreat center. So
Mhm.
if you wouldn't mind just establishing a little bit more on that, because I know there's a lot of men out there who are like, well, maybe the spiritual world isn't for me because, I'm not a hippie. And I feel like there are some blocks in that regard that I would love if you could touch on.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a deep question, actually. I like to think of, you're right, there are a lot of men that adopt a more feminine role in spirituality, right? I hope that I can help inspire more men, like I'm an engineer. So I do get a lot of engineers that come up to me and say, "Oh, this is actually really amazing that you're an engineer and you actually thought this stuff was kind of weird at first as well." And I did at first. I thought it was kind of weird, and I really was expecting the person who did my first healing to be a guy in a robe with beads and long hair and all this, and I was expecting that, and I was kind of like, not to knock that if that's what you are. I'm not knocking that. We're talking in general terms here, okay? So in general terms, I mean, we have masculine energy and we have feminine energy, right? And if you take like the banks of a river, right? That would be more of a masculine energy. That gives the water somewhere to flow, which is a feminine aspect. Now, we're not talking male and female here. I'm talking about masculine and feminine because women have masculine and feminine energy as well as men have masculine and feminine. And we like to try to keep, like a 70-30 balance for it to be, really working and flowing well. So I think sometimes people either have that kind of masculine energy or it's a masculine energy that's just way too dominating and way too out of control. And we don't really need any more masculine energy that's just trying to dominate and do this type of thing. We need a masculine energy that's going to help uplift, stand in truth, protect, provide a structure, right? Um, because masculine energy does provide a structure. It does provide a structure so that there can be flow within that structure. I don't know. I like to bring that to help bring the balance, holding a space where both the energies can like rise together, where both of them can, because we need feminine energy and we need masculine energy in the world for us to be able to create. It's not going to really help if everyone's trying to be feminine energy or everyone's trying to be masculine energy at the same time. It's the union of both that helps create that. You can't have you can't have one without the other, you know, although people say, yeah, you can, we don't need the other, but you really do in order to create.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing on that. You do hold a very significant role in especially not just in Kabbalah and teaching, but also students. You represent the lineage in many ways as part of leadership. And it's very special because we get to observe that, we need to live a matrix life and a magical life. Like we have to have a foot in the matrix and in a sense of we have to be able to master the matrix. We have to have beautiful, live well, eat well, sleep well, and create these beautiful things. And you reflect that quite significantly. So thank you for that. And as part of leadership, and for those who are listening and want to know more about the Modern Mystery School, about the path and, taking those steps, if you're not already on the path, please feel free to either reach out to Ambassador Eric through his own social medias, which will be on in this podcast. I will put all of them there. So if you want to work with him, if you're interested in reaching out or any of the classes he teaches, it will be available for you there. And then for myself, I will put the Modern Mystery School details below as well. So if you just want to check that out and, have immediate access to finding out more about the path, I think I'll definitely need to invite Ambassador Eric back onto the podcast too.
All right.
But as someone in that leadership position, looking ahead, what is your vision for the work that you do? You teach, you lead, you guide, and you're always present with us in most of the classes globally as well. Like, what is your vision, and what's the legacy that you wish to leave behind when you venture on to
Other dimensions.
the other dimensions?
Well, I would really like to leave behind seeds, you know, hopefully very positive seeds of light that will continue to grow, you know, after I'm gone. So that means, you know, preparing the soil, planting the seeds of, yeah, seeds of light, things of good that can continue to grow whether I'm here or not. And I think I've started that through, you know, bringing the mystery school to Brazil. There are now about 2,000 initiates in Brazil, approximately. That started with zero. So I invite anyone who's watching here to remember that, you know, you can make a difference, even if you're not aware of what you did. Sometimes you don't see the seeds, the fruits of those actions, you know, of that butterfly effect. But just know that if you're doing good in the world, you're doing acts of kindness and this, that you will help the world get better in some way besides helping yourself. It's really fulfilling to be able to serve and help other people to get there. So I feel like I'm a success if I've helped others to be able to get there and beyond. So that's what I hope.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's super grounding and hearing those words come out your mouth. And just, for our closing, I just wanted to ask on a personal note, what has Kabbalah done for you? How has it shaped your own growth and leadership and understanding of life?
Yeah, well, I would say Kabbalah has changed my life tremendously because it helped me to reprogram what I had started to believe was true about myself, which was my negative ego or the false who I am, right? And I started to believe that in the masks and live this way. And Kabbalah helped me to mask myself and so I could reveal, you know, the true me. But it wasn't just Kabbalah, it was also the Mystery School path has done that. It's just that Kabbalah is a personal love of mine, it's a personal passion of mine. And I love it because it takes you no matter where you are, you know, you're here, it'll take you to there. Whether you're already up here, it'll take you to the next level, right? So if you really want to experience the upper levels or, you know, the penthouse, whatever it is, the where you want to get to, I recommend that you do Kabbalah because it will show you, you know, so much of who you really, really are. And to me, that's priceless. So I just love it. I just love it.
Amazing, Ambassador. Thank you so much. And really, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing so vulnerably. And those seeds that you said that you wished to plant, they are planting, flourishing, and I can't wait to see what else you are
Way.
going with. Yeah. So thank you so much.
you, Jessica.
Is there anything else you wish to share with the listeners before we wrap this beautiful podcast up?
I would just leave everyone saying, because, you're going to go back to your life, whether you decide to come and do Kabbalah, and I hope you do decide to do Kabbalah at some point, is that just remember that you be appreciative of what you have and have gratitude, right? Because it's really hard for you to be grateful and suffer simultaneously. So I think people forget sometimes to be grateful for everything. So when I wake up in the morning, I say, I'm grateful that I'm alive and I have one more day on this planet. And at night, before I go to bed, I think of all the things that I'm grateful for. This allows me to feed all the positivity in my life and gives you a focus that can really help you. So I would recommend that if you're maybe not where you want to get to yet, start to focus on gratitude, start to focus on appreciating the things that you do have right now and the things that you are right now as you seek to change and become better. But that's a huge key because that'll give you the fuel to keep going.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And, you know, it- it's not selfish to want a better life for yourself. It's not selfish to want to live in a better car with a better home and, have better friends and have what's even better. So thank you. But I love that is it anchors within the gratitude. Really, that gratitude, it's helped me. And in moments when I realize that I don't have what I want, I need to check myself because I'm like, am I actually being grateful?
Yeah, yeah, because you might not be where you want to get to, but instead of beating yourself up because you're not there and punishing yourself for not being there yet, that really goes against, be grateful that you know what, I'm, a lot further than where I was and where I came from. I don't want to go back there anymore. So
Mm.
just keep walking forward, and when you do that, one foot in front of the other, you will eventually get to where you want.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ambassador. And for
Right.
those who are listening, once
Thank
again,
you.
thank you so much for spending this time with us. And I really wanted to say that if you do feel like joining us again on this, if you feel like working with Ambassador or with myself, and or if you want to know more information about the Modern Mystery School, please reach out and we will be there for you. Thank you so much. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.